Afternoon. I'm glad to see what we did today. I'm particularly pleased about the drug treatment courts. As I've said in my press release, Senator Clara McCaskill started the first drug treatment court in Missouri in the early 90s. It was the second drug treatment court in the United States, the first being in Florida. And the fact that we had only one no vote in expanding those courts and in making sure that more Missourians have access to treatment as opposed to punitive measures, I'm thrilled about, and I think that it's a great opportunity to pay homage to Senator McCaskill for her fine work and trailblazing on this piece. We're going to let Kip talk about the budget stuff, and then we'll take questions.
So we were busy, obviously, doing House stuff. I didn't get a chance to check. I assume the Senate overrode all the vetoes that we did as well, right? Yeah, very good. All right, great. Well, sounds good. All joking aside, there were quite a few line item vetoes that were frustrating, I think, to many members of the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle. Not a whole lot of explanation up front. We also understand that Governor Parson had just come into office, and there was a major transition underway. And it's easy to make mistakes when you're rushed to make decisions like that, and we completely understand that. Looking in particular at the time-critical diagnosis piece, one of the most important vetoes that we saw. The governor, it seemed like the governor recognized that he made a mistake, tried to undo that mistake, moving some money around, moving some FTEs around to fill back in that. But that really is kind of moving money around in a line that's been vetoed really doesn't fit with the appropriation process and budgeting process. In a way, it kind of undercuts the legislative branch, legislative authority that we have to appropriate funds. We felt like the right move was to override the veto. And, sometimes everybody makes mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. Sometimes you just got to own up to the mistake that you make, and we're all human. And I don't think Governor Parson wanted to see this program disappear. Soon after, I think he realized that it's an important program, obviously, not just to us here in the building, but to everyone around the state of Missouri. It's critical to rural Missouri and urban Missouri alike. So, we're somewhat optimistic, cautiously optimistic that the Senate may take some action, especially on that line in particular. I assume this will be an ongoing conversation, though, as we head into as we move further along in FY19 and begin the FY20 budget discussion at the start of the next session.
Let me ask you the same question I asked Chairman Fitzpatrick. If the Senate, assuming it doesn't act on any of the four overrides that came out of the House today, do you have any concerns on any of those individual four programs between now and January?
I know we had a long budget hearing, well over a month ago now, and a lot of the issues that we talked about here on the House floor today, very briefly, were discussed at length in the budget hearing, and in particular the time-critical diagnosis. Governor Greitens had proposed cutting that program out of his governor's budget recommendation. The House fought to put it back in, and we fought to make sure it didn't fight with the Senate. The Senate realized that it needed to stay in the budget, and so we passed it, sent it on to Governor Parson at that time. And again, quick decision that had to be made, and I think that maybe he was given some wrong advice on how to handle that program. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how that program moves forward if the line's been vetoed, and if the two FTEs in the program have been vetoed. We want to see the program move forward, but it's also like, how does a program exist if it doesn't have a line and a place within the budget? So I think potentially we'll have an ongoing conversation. I don't want to see any of the services disrupted or interrupted. But that being said, we need to make sure that we're handling things appropriately.
With Kendrick, when I talked to the governor, he basically said they can take the money out of their current budget and just use their $1.1 billion to find $153,000. Chairman Fitzpatrick says they can't do that, and he said if it's not dealt with, they'll have to deal with it in January. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, what are we going to start doing next? Just lump summing money to the department and said, you guys figure it out? Are we going to start seeing the creation of new programs across the state of Missouri that are, coming from a directive from within the department or from the executive branch? I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself, what is the legislative branch's authority? And that is to appropriate money and to create a budget. And we did. And unfortunately, this program line was vetoed. And we don't understand a bipartisan group of us don't understand how money's just shifted into a program that was vetoed. So again, I don't blame the governor. I really don't. I think he's off to a good start, and I think it's been a good. I think it's kind of been a breath of fresh air for the whole state of Missouri. His work around the state, but this is an area where he potentially made a mistake, and it's easy to own up to it. And so we hope that we can all come to an agreement that the legislative branch has their right to budget, and we like the program. We appreciate the time critical diagnosis program. That's why we appropriated it. So when it was vetoed, we were all confused by what happened.
You said something a second ago about it. The Senate, they can't change it. It's too late, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that that time has passed at this point. So
This January will be your first time working with Parson in a regular session context. Based on your interactions with the governor to date, how would you characterize your working relationship with the governor?
Well, I think the Governor Parson is certainly a refreshing change from our past governor. I think that he's already demonstrated a desire to reach out and communicate, which is obviously the first step in trying to come together on any policy. We're certainly going to have some big disagreements on a lot of policy, and that's okay. That's our system. So I welcome continued dialogue with Governor Parson next year, and hope that we are able to, again, we may not agree, but we don't have to be disagreeable about it, and I appreciate that.
And what is your reaction to the STEM and to the treatment courts in general? The fact that those votes were very bipartisan. I think one of them only had one no vote.
Well, again, the drug treatment court, there was only one no vote, right. and as I said before, I think that that's a testament to Senator Clara McCaskill for starting a program that was a good program that here we are 25 years later are expanding and making better. Mm-hmm. So obviously the drug treatment courts is very near and dear to my heart, and I think given we have an opioid crisis in the state of Missouri and the United States, this is another tool in the toolbox that is really sorely needed. As for the STEM stuff, the vote on that was a little bit different. I think that there are genuine concerns about the new language basically creating an end run around the language that caused the governor to veto it to begin with. And, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Senate does, and we'll see who ultimately, assuming that the bill becomes law, let's see what happens in the contracting process. Anything else? Going once, going twice. We're gone. Good to see you guys too. Take care.